Hi, I'm Alan Ross, and we are at Distributech 2025. We've got interviews with thought leaders, and we'd love for you to see what we've done here. Hey, thanks for joining us. My next guest is Deia Bayoumi. We've done this before.
Yes.
You look familiar to me.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Very good to see you again. You look the same. Did I age you one bit? It's almost 10 years ago.
It was about 10 years ago, and we were talking about what?
HVDC infrastructure,
Yeah.
how the growth of HVDC was happening in US and Canada, bringing all the renewable with the growth in demand, and that's why we're talking about the technology at the time.
And look where we are. We were right.
Yes, we were right. The infrastructure is growing, the demand is growing, the talent is really shrinking, and we really need more and more support for the industry.
I know we're going to be talking about transformer services, but tell me how you got into transformer services.
So almost 30 plus years in the industry. I was very fortunate to start with the initiation of Hitachi Energy, where I'm employed right now with ABB. So I work around different parts of ABB. I also worked a couple of years in semiconductor industry and 3 years in the molecule side of energy, carbon capture, fuel cell, and electrolyzer for hydrogen. So overall, being in that industry for many years and working through building, designing, creating products and applications, I think it was really natural now to go on the service side, trying to make sure that we extend the life of this equipment, the reliability, the resiliency.
One of the big things that's happening, there's been more change in the power industry in the last 5 years than maybe in the 50 years before that.
Yes.
And that change, although it's good for society, it has just created havoc with transformers that are in the market today. The new power transformers, 3 to 5 years to get. So what do you do when you haven't taken care of it? And now you're being asked to extend the age of it. And you just said that. Extending the age of a transformer is not easy. Somebody said, when do you start doing it? 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
You start when you install it.
Exactly.
Talk a little bit about the difference between what's up. We're going to get to what's in the marketplace now, but new transformers are not built like the old transformers. They're built to spec, but they're not built to over-spec. Talk a little bit about what you see as services for new transformers.
So, yes. So the infrastructure and transformers, specifically other high voltage equipment, are challenged with the grid evolution right now. There's lots of new technology being added, renewable, solar, wind, smart grid, different technology, creating harmonic, creating stress in the equipment. So the equipment is challenged not to operate the same way as designed back in the day when the evolution of the grid is what is happening today. Huge demand from data center, from growth of onshoring the factories back, from the growth in general, which is, like you said, it's good for the society, goes for everybody. Not good for the equipment, especially when the service is reactive and you do it based on time-based and you do it only whenever it's needed. So the industry have been conditioned more to respond to emergencies and basic services. What we're trying to bring in right now is, and this is what powered me up with service actually, it has multiple wind dimensions. One for planet is around sustainability. The more you extend the life of this equipment, the performance of it, the less material of earth we consume in building new equipment.
Right.
One for the community, because without power, really, prosperity, life of people are at stake. So we need the power to stay on. And that's what we're trying to do by extending the equipment life and performance to make sure it's up and running. One for the industry being the lending our expertise of years and years, building this equipment, designing it, delivering it, and running in certain application. All this expertise, we're trying to lend it to the industry where there is a challenge around talent. There is finally the aging workforce, new workforce, and partnering with the industry to provide this expertise for the overall community. I went for the company that will bring more talents to the company to work in service and really be part of this overall. So this sustainability, this community-based, industry-based, partnership-based. So service really have multiple dimensions. Wake me up every morning to really go and work in that mission. So part of the services is we can be an advisory for whatever segment in the industry, industrial, data center, utility, and give them recommendation for what maintenance strategy they need to deploy for this particular application. We can tell them how they decarbonize or meet sustainability kind of rules, or if they're trying to reduce the amount of energy being consumed. Part of it is basic services like we install and commission the devices, but the lifecycle management, I think, is the one that we're trying to really engage more with the customer.
Right.
So rather than being reactive, let's be proactive and make sure that we anticipate what might happen with this equipment based on the condition. How can we put solution for it? How can we mitigate that? So we know events will happen. What really we target is to reduce the number of the events happening, reduce the frequency of them, reduce the impact of them, and more importantly, increase the resiliency by speed up the recovery time.
Right. The industry, let's talk about cold transformers, the installed base that's out there right now. And you're right. I think the last statistic I heard was over 50% of truck rolls are, we call them repairman Mike.
Yes.
You know, it's broken. You got to go out and fix it. And we love repairman Mike. But the guy that didn't let it fall, the guy that takes care of it so that it doesn't fail, he's not the hero. It's the hero that's Mike. When you talk about putting together a program for old transformers, because if they can't get new ones, number one, as you say, if they don't need a new one, people replacing equipment on a time-based scale doesn't work. They're all old, right? But talk a little bit about how you can go in and you can take an installed base of transformers, evaluate the condition, not the time. And that's beauty. You're right. Time-based maintenance doesn't work in the electrical system. You tend to break more things than you ever find. But condition-based maintenance, a program that works with the labor force, everybody's looking for people to go out and do it, specialized work. It's a safe work environment because you're going into a substation power transformer. So you're dealing with the safety issues. The fact that you got dirty power now more than you had before, power quality issues are coming into it. You build a program that if I'm a client and I got, let's say, 250 power transformers in my network, whether that's a small utility, a big industrial, whatever it is, tell me why you could help me.
Yes, so we have several programs tailored to your need. For us, services tailor is not really a product of the shelf.
Right.
So we need to see, like you mentioned, how many equipment they have, the condition of the system. And this is where we lend you the expertise. I used to joke that we have engineers in the company that can see magnetic field of the transformer with their own eyes. But it is true. They really have this artificial intelligence algorithms into their human intelligence that by looking at data, they can assess that you may have an issue with the winding, you may have issue with the insulation, you may have issue with the oil, you may have issue somewhere with the accessories. So what we do is we have a program named Assess and Secure. So a category of different services where we can look at all your fleet and assess their conditions and then secure their operation. That's mostly traditionally manual. If the customer is open to visualization, that's a whole new level of sophistication now that we already have been in the industry adding sensors, adding communication. In some areas, more successful than others. Data sharing is still to a large extent a challenge, but we're trying to remove this obstacle by saying to the customer, whichever policy you have will comply with. We can get the data via fiber or GSM, or we can get it from the site. We can really do it on site. So we're trying to really just get as much data, as much condition assessment as we can. And then this way we can offer the security for this equipment. Whether it's ordering parts ahead of time to avoid the lead time, inventory management of these parts, deploying just in time. We have another program mostly targeted around utilities that they have self-performing capabilities of training programs.
Yeah.
So we have several academy of training, one in the US, one in Canada, where we're training this new workforce and we're telling them from basic 101, what is a transformer, to more sophistication, what's the application, to even maintenance and how you really self-perform the work yourself.
Yeah.
Maintenance agreement is different levels of 1, 2, 3, 5, 20 years where we just take care of it in partnership with the customer. So part of ours, part of theirs, or we can take care of it completely. The parts, I think, is mostly the challenge right now that whenever an event happens and customer want to replace a bushing, and then they find out that it's weeks to get a bushing, is not like days. It's really that whole super cycle of demand in the industry that driving services more. And customer now is looking at the equipment to last more than the 60 years, more than the 80 years, but more important, not just to last, they perform under different conditions and they deliver really reliability. So we moved from turning the light on to really keep the light on. How can you keep the light on?
Load growth is increasing. We know that. And it's low growth that used to be quite linear is no longer linear.
Yes.
You got You got all these DC things throwing power. I was thinking about this. Is the Pearl Street station in New York? There's the DC plant that Edison built in New York. It's called the Pearl Street. I wonder if that's still working. It might.
I don't know.
It might be the only DC.
It might be the only DC, yeah.
But as it turns out, when Westinghouse and Edison and Tesla were arguing about it, they didn't go with Edison, but it's all called Edison, right? When you think of a customer and he's got something, let's just say it's working. Okay. I mean, his system is working. He's not having it's not a catastrophic failure. And I got to call you to, hey, come do it. Stay away from the repair part. There's a certain level of customer that you deal with. Many times in the maintenance area, you got to get above that level because you need to talk about total cost of ownership. This guy's just thinking about cost. His boss has said, cut your costs, cut your costs. You need somebody to think about the overall system, total cost of ownership, repairing what you've got, maintaining what you've got, taking it from 50 years to 60. That's a lot. You reduce capital expenses by doing that. And if you can't get transformers anyway, a great way to do it is to fix the ones you got to last until you can. Talk to the different levels of how you would approach them, because I think it's important.
It is very important. And it is a whole player map and value chain of stakeholders that we need to talk to.
Right.
Maintenance engineer, like I said, we focus for the field technicians around safety. Okay. And we really have a very rigorous safety program. And then we show them that we're going to perform the service in and out the most safest way, the most sustainable way, the shortest time possible, the cleanest way possible. And we train them on this. We're trying to, of course, not trying, actually, we're working to make sure our team is safe, but the customer is safe.
Yeah.
When we talk to the supply chain partner, we show them the total cost of ownership, and we show them that impact of significant events that may happen and how we can become your partner of risk mitigation. When we talk to the C-level, we show them the partnership of making sure that their total operation, if they are utility, their public utility commission, understand that their investment is secure. They have in their return of investment. They're really making sure that their business model is sustainable. So every key player in the value chain of the customer we talk to with the value that impact their key performance indicator and why does it matter for them. But that's what makes service also very intriguing and comprehensive of the entire industry, because you're touching all the products, you're touching the application, you're touching the entire system and entirely, and trying to make it sure that it's performing to its peak and performing to the people. So this is how we approach it from each perspective.
When you're in a substation, so you're doing transformer services, are your crews, are your knowledge base for the whole substation or just the transformer?
For the whole substation. So we actually hit
substation service.
Substation services, actually we call it now services. So we really have a group of service experts in every business we have. Transformers, breaker, the system infrastructure side or the grid automation side. But now we really actually combining this whole team together and we call it services. We're really serving Hitachi equipment, but also non-Hitachi equipment. I mean, we have the heritage from Westinghouse, like I mentioned.
Right.
ADD, we work in even competitors' devices. So we have actually expertise and knowledge in the system itself, in the power system. Right. And that's what we really lending to the industry now.
So system service.
System service.
Yes. System service. Yes. Anyway, last question. We've seen a lot of change. We kind of know what's going on. What do you think utilities are going to face 5 to 10 years from now that they're not looking at today?
I think what the utility is going to face, not looking at today, is that demand of the super cycle will continue. And we need to start adapting to different ways of operating the system. So, for example, in services right now, I mentioned we have those subject matter expertise that can really assist with all the data, diagnose what might be happening. We're really moving more and more towards artificial intelligence. So how can we gather all this data into big data lake? How can we process it faster? How can we respond faster to and predict what might happen and run multiple scenarios and really zoom in on the more likely one and start performing this way? Utility is still operating, and the whole industry in general, in the traditional way of reactive more than proactive. There is some proactiveness in some areas and some segments, but I think the total proactiveness and the total connection, I think the connected power system will be the new challenge that utility have been aware of, they have been incrementally working on, but I think now is going to be a whole different connection where you have data center coming to the mix and impacting the load significantly. You have semiconductor factories. You have onshoring of manufacturing. You have growth in general in population. All of this require all utilities and all the systems and all even the loads to interact with each other in a connected way. So I think connected would be the new way of how we deal with connected systems.
And the industry has not been connected before.
Hasn't been connected before.
You know, you think about it, 50 public service commissions, 50 states,
Yes.
the Department of Energy, NERC, FERC, and all of the other IRCs. It's been hard because they basically have been siloed. And now we're saying to them, you can't be siloed in.
Yep.
And yeah, you got to have interconnectivity element. Interoperability, what does that mean?
Interoperability means that all the systems, all the devices can understand and communicate with each other. So basically, even if they have their own protocols, they have their own design, they have everything, at least when they communicate, I have a failure, I have a condition, I have some state of some sort, it needs to be understood by a different manufacturer, and then they're able to operate across the board. So back to connected is just how they are able to interoperate between different systems.
Last question, I counted your last question. You mentioned that resilience, reliability is keeping it on, keeping the power on. Resilience is getting it back on after a storm. The services part you're talking about has to play a big role in that because we're getting
Absolutely
worse storms, fires.
Yes. So I think that's your original question also, what utility and the industry need to understand that events will happen. Now, it's not that we need to avoid the risk. We need to manage the risk.
Right.
So reliability, like you mentioned, is really how you make the product more reliable. So we have very strong standards of designing, of procuring material, of manufacturing the equipment, of testing the equipment, compliance with everything. So the equipment from that perspective, should you follow the really maintenance routines and everything else, should be very reliable. But when you put it in a system, resilience is all about recovery.
Yeah.
Events will happen. Storms, fire, like you mentioned, some kind of event that will strike the system. So we should not really imagine that there will never be an outage. But we should not be waiting for the outage to happen and then look for an emergency service and find crews everywhere to recover.
Yeah.
We should be really looking for that resiliency, which means how can I minimize this downtime and how can I increase the uptime? So once I have the emergency or the downtime, what recovery mechanism do I have? Do I have interconnected system? Can I bring the power from somewhere? Do I have on-site some repair equipment? Do I have the crew ready to go? Do they can remote into it? We have now lots of actually augmented reality also glasses where maybe level 1 technician can be in the field, but level 5 or higher can be back in the office. And they can see inside the equipment. So it's not just a simple iPhone or iPad. It's a complete augmented reality that give you the full condition of the system. And now that expert might be in the US, might be in Europe, might be somewhere else, but they are from the factory that build this equipment. And this is how we're really doing this connectivity to really get into that. So the resilience is very key. And that's where also the industry need to understand and comprehend that events will happen. We need to minimize the frequency, the impact of them, and increase the uptime, which is resilience.
So when the event happens, all they have to do is pick up the phone and call Deia and say, hey, how are you going to help fix this?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we're here for that. Thank you.
It's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Pleasure meeting you, Alan.